Imagine two fathers. One holds a PhD, earns a steady government salary, and believes the path to success is paved with good grades and job security. The other never finished high school, builds businesses, and teaches his son that working for money is a trap. One dies in debt. The other becomes one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. What if everything you've been taught about money is wrong? What if the rules of wealth aren't hidden in textbooks, but whispered in conversations most people never hear? Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful lessons ever shared about money, freedom, and the invisible line that separates the rich from everyone else. You're watching the book Sanctuary. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just a book about money. It's a memoir, a manifesto, and a mirror. Published in 1997, it became a global phenomenon, translated into dozens of languages, sitting on bestseller lists for years. Why? Because it dared to say what most people felt but couldn't articulate. That traditional education doesn't teach you how to be free. It teaches you how to be obedient. Kiyosaki grew up with two fathers. His biological father, his poor dad, was highly educated, respected, and perpetually struggling. His best friend's father, his rich dad, was a savvy entrepreneur who understood the language of assets, liabilities, and cash flow. Through their contrasting philosophies, Kiyosaki learned that wealth isn't about how much you earn. It's about how you think. In this audiobook, you'll discover the 6 lessons Rich Dad taught that changed Robert's life forever. You'll learn why your house might not be an asset, why the rich don't work for money, and why financial literacy is the most important skill you'll never learn in school. So settle in. This isn't just a summary. This is a story about freedom, fear, and the courage to choose a different path. Robert Kiyosaki was 9 years old when he first felt poor. Not because his family lacked food or shelter, but because he attended a school filled with rich kids. They drove up in Cadillacs. They went to beach houses on weekends, and they made sure Robert knew he wasn't invited. One day, humiliated and angry, Robert asked his father how to get rich. His dad, poor dad, put down his newspaper aside and said something vague about working hard and getting good grades. It wasn't the answer Robert wanted, so he turned to his best friend Mike's dad, a man who owned warehouses, restaurants, and stores, but never went to college. This was Rich Dad. Rich Dad didn't offer advice. He offered a deal. "Work for me," he said, "and I'll teach you." Robert agreed, excited to learn the secrets of wealth. But Rich Dad didn't teach him anything. At least, not in the way Robert expected. Instead, he paid Robert 10 cents an hour to work in one of his small convenience stores. For 3 weeks, Robert dusted shelves, stocked cans, and swept floors. The work was boring. The pay was insulting. And Rich Dad never said a word about money. Robert was furious. He felt used. So he marched into Rich Dad's office and demanded answers. "You said you'd teach me, but all you've done is exploit me." Rich Dad smiled. "Good," he said. "Now you're ready to learn." He explained that most people work for money their entire lives because they're driven by 2 emotions, fear and greed. Fear of not having enough pushes them to work. Greed for more possessions keeps them working harder, but they never escape the cycle. They trade their time for money, spend it, and need more. It's an endless loop. Rich Dad called it the rat race. The poor and middle class work for money, he said. The rich have money work for them. Robert didn't fully understand. So Rich Dad made him an offer. He would stop paying him entirely. Robert would work for free. At first, Robert thought it was insane. But Rich Dad insisted, "If you want to learn how to stop working for money, you must stop needing money." So Robert worked for free. And something shifted. Without a paycheck, he had to think differently. He couldn't just wait for someone to pay him. He had to create value. A few weeks later, Robert and Mike had an idea. The convenience store threw away damaged comic books every week. So they asked the distributor if they could have them. With permission, they started a comic book library in Mike's basement. Kids paid 10 cents for 2 hours of unlimited reading. Mike's sister ran the operation. Robert and Mike didn't have to be there. The money came in whether they worked or not. Rich Dad was thrilled. "You just learned the most important lesson," he said. "You build an asset, something that puts money in your pocket without your labor. That's how the rich think." This was lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. They build systems, invest in assets, and let their money multiply. Meanwhile, most people trade their lives for a paycheck, never realizing they're building someone else's wealth, not their own. Fear keeps them working. Desire keeps them spending. And the cycle never ends, unless you learn to think differently. Years later, Robert and Mike had grown into very different versions of success. Mike took over his father's empire and expanded it, now wealthier than most people could imagine. Robert, meanwhile, retired at 47 alongside his wife Kim, not because they stopped working, but because they no longer had to. Their assets generated enough income to cover their expenses, and then some. They had achieved financial freedom. But Rich Dad's lessons didn't end with that first comic book library. The second lesson was just as crucial and far more misunderstood: financial literacy. Most people, Rich Dad explained, don't know the difference between an asset and a liability, and that ignorance keeps them poor. Rich Dad's definition was simple. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. It sounds obvious, but Robert realized most people get it backwards. They think their house is an asset. They think their car is an asset. But if those things cost you money every month, mortgage payments, insurance, repairs, they're liabilities. Rich Dad used to say, "It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep." He taught Robert to read financial statements, the income statement and the balance sheet. The income statement shows your cash flow, money coming in and money going out. The balance sheet shows what you own and what you owe. Together, they tell the story of your financial life. Robert drew simple diagrams to explain. For poor people, money flows in through a job and flows right back out through expenses. There's nothing left. For middle-class people, money flows in through a job, but they also have liabilities, mortgages, car loans, credit cards. The more they earn, the more they owe. They feel successful, but they're trapped. For rich people, money flows in through assets. Real estate that generates rent, businesses that produce profit, stocks that pay dividends. Their expenses are paid by their assets, not their labor. Rich Dad hammered this point home. Most people work hard all their lives and have nothing to show for it. Why? Because they buy liabilities they think are assets. Take the house. Society tells you to buy a home. It's the American dream. But Rich Dad saw it differently. A house costs you money every month. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance. It doesn't generate income. It's a liability. Now, if you rent out a property and the rent covers the mortgage and expenses, that's an asset. But your primary residence? That's a liability disguised as security. Robert remembered his father, poor dad, who worked his entire life, earned a good salary, and died with little to pass on. Why? Because he focused on income, not assets. He paid high taxes. He spent what was left. He never invested. His financial statement looked strong on paper, but in reality, he was always one paycheck away from trouble. Rich Dad taught Robert to focus on building the asset column. Start small. Buy something that generates cash flow. Reinvest the profits. Let your money work for you. Over time, your assets grow, your income grows, and your financial freedom becomes inevitable. This is why financial literacy matters. Without it, you're flying blind. You work hard, earn more, and wonder why you never get ahead. The answer is in the numbers. The rich know how to read them. The poor and middle class don't. And that single difference shapes entire lives. Rich Dad had a favorite saying. The rich focus on their asset column. Everyone else focuses on their income column. Most people spend their lives working for someone else. They trade their time for a paycheck. They pay taxes. They pay bills. And if there's anything left, they save it or spend it. They never build anything that lasts. Rich Dad called this minding someone else's business. You make your employer rich. You make the government rich. You make the bank rich. But you never make yourself rich. Lesson 3 was about changing that. Mind your own business. Robert's poor dad believed in job security. Get a good education. Find a stable job. Work your way up. Retire with a pension. It was a safe plan. But it was also a trap. Poor dad spent his life working for the government, earning a good salary, but never building wealth. When he died, there was little left. His income stopped the moment he stopped working. Rich Dad took a different approach. He believed in building assets that generate income, whether you work or not. He didn't care about job titles or salaries. He cared about cash flow. He taught Robert to think like an entrepreneur and investor, not an employee. So what does it mean to mind your own business? It means building your asset column while keeping your day job. You don't quit your job tomorrow. You start small. You buy a rental property. You invest in stocks. You start a side business. You create something that generates income passively. Rich Dad defined true assets as things that put money in your pocket without requiring your time. Real estate that produces rent. Stocks that pay dividends. Royalties from intellectual property. Businesses that run without you. These are assets. Everything else, your car, your furniture, your gadgets, these are expenses disguised as possessions. Robert followed this advice. While working for Xerox, he invested in real estate. He bought small properties, rented them out, and reinvested the cash flow. Over time, his asset column grew stronger. Eventually, the income from his assets exceeded his salary. That's when he knew he could retire. Not because he was old, but because he was free. Rich Dad also warned against lifestyle inflation. Most people earn more and immediately spend more. They buy a bigger house, a nicer car, go on expensive vacations. They feel successful, but they're just as trapped as before. Rich Dad taught Robert to resist this temptation. Instead of buying luxuries with earned income, buy them with passive income from assets. Let your investments pay for your lifestyle, not your labor. This is the secret the rich know and the middle class doesn't. Wealth isn't about how much you earn. It's about how much you keep and how hard your money works for you. The rich buy assets first, then enjoy luxuries. The poor and middle class buy luxuries first, then wonder why they're always broke. Mind your own business. Build your asset column. Let your money work for you. That's how you escape the rat race. Rich Dad used to say, "The rich don't play by the same rules." And nowhere is this more true than with taxes. Most people believe taxes are inevitable. You earn money, the government takes its share, and you live on what's left. But Rich Dad taught Robert that taxes weren't always this way. And they don't have to control your life if you understand how the rich use the system. Taxes, Rich Dad explained, were originally designed to punish the rich. In the early 1900s, governments needed money to fund wars and social programs. So they introduced income tax, promising it would only affect the wealthy. The masses cheered. Finally, the rich would pay their fair share. But the rich didn't just accept this. They adapted. They used corporations, legal structures, and investment strategies to minimize their tax burden. And over time, the tax burden shifted. Today, employees and self-employed individuals pay the highest taxes. Meanwhile, business owners and investors who understand the system pay far less. Here's how it works. When you're an employee, you earn money, pay taxes, then spend what's left. The government takes its cut first. You have no control. But when you own a business or invest through a corporation, you earn money, spend it on legitimate expenses, then pay taxes on what's left. This flips the equation. You control the timing. You control the deductions. You keep more of what you earn. Rich Dad showed Robert the difference with a simple diagram. Employees work for money, pay 30 to 50% in taxes, then live on the rest. Business owners earn money, reinvest it in assets, deduct expenses, and pay taxes only on the remaining profit, which is often much smaller. This is why the rich get richer. They use the tax code legally and intelligently. Corporations also provide legal protection. If someone sues you personally, they can take your house, your car, your savings. But if you own a corporation that holds your assets, those assets are protected. The corporation is a separate legal entity. This is why the rich own nothing personally, but control everything through legal structures. Rich Dad wasn't advocating tax evasion. He was teaching tax strategy. There's a difference. Evasion is illegal. Strategy is smart. The tax code is full of incentives for business owners and investors, deductions, credits, deferrals. The government wants you to invest, create jobs, and build the economy. So they reward you with tax breaks. But most people never learn this because schools don't teach it. Robert remembered his poor dad, who paid his taxes honestly and complained bitterly. He felt cheated by the system. But Rich Dad understood the system. He didn't fight it. He used it. And that made all the difference. The lesson here is clear. Financial intelligence includes understanding taxes. If you want to build wealth, you must learn how money flows, how taxes work, and how to structure your finances legally to keep more of what you earn. The rich aren't cheating. They're simply playing a different game, one most people don't even know exists. One of Rich Dad's most powerful lessons was this: money is just an idea. Most people see money as something physical, cash, coins, a paycheck. But Rich Dad taught Robert that real wealth is created in the mind. It's not about working harder. It's about thinking smarter. The rich don't wait for opportunities. They create them. Robert learned this firsthand in the 1990s. The economy in Phoenix, Arizona, was terrible. Real estate prices had crashed. People were desperate to sell. Most saw disaster. Robert saw opportunity. While others complained about the market, Robert went to work. He studied foreclosures, attended auctions, and networked with bankruptcy attorneys. He found properties worth $75,000, selling for $20,000. He'd buy them with little or no money down, then immediately advertise them for $60,000. Still below market value, but a great deal for buyers. Within hours, the property would sell. Robert would pocket the difference, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, without ever living in the house. This is what Rich Dad meant by inventing money. Robert didn't have millions in the bank. He had financial intelligence. He understood value, cash flow, and leverage. He saw what others missed, and he acted fast. Rich Dad explained that there are two types of investors. The first type buys packaged investments, mutual funds, stocks, bonds. They rely on experts and hope for the best. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's passive. The second type creates investments. They find deals, negotiate terms, structure financing, and build wealth actively. This requires knowledge, courage, and creativity, but the rewards are exponential. Robert shared another example. He found a small piece of land for $9,000. He didn't need it, but he recognized it was undervalued. So he bought it with borrowed money, then immediately listed it for $25,000. It sold within weeks. He paid back the loan, pocketed the profit, and moved on. Total time invested, a few hours. Total financial risk, almost none. Total return, infinite, because he used other people's money. This is the power of financial intelligence. It's not about having money. It's about knowing how to make money work for you. The rich understand markets, negotiate deals, and take calculated risks. They don't wait for permission. They don't need perfect conditions. They act. Rich Dad also emphasized that financial intelligence requires continuous learning. Robert attended seminars, read books, played investment games, and sought mentors. He treated his financial education like a lifelong journey, not a one-time event. Every lesson increased his ability to spot opportunities and create wealth from thin air. But with this power comes responsibility. Robert warned that financial intelligence without ethics leads to greed and destruction. The goal isn't just to get rich. It's to create value, solve problems, and build a life of freedom and purpose. Money is a tool, not the destination. The lesson here is profound. The world is full of opportunities, but only those who train their minds to see them can seize them. Stop waiting for someone to hand you wealth. Start inventing it yourself. When Robert graduated from college, he had 2 job offers. One was from Standard Oil, a stable, high-paying position with great benefits. It was exactly what his poor dad hoped for. The other path was uncertain. Join the Marine Corps, learn to fly, and eventually build businesses. Poor dad was horrified. Rich dad was thrilled. Rich dad's advice was simple. Work to learn, not to earn. Most people choose careers based on salary and security. They become specialists, doctors, lawyers, accountants, and earn good money. But Rich Dad warned that overspecialization can be a trap. If you spend your whole life mastering one skill, you become dependent on that skill. If the market changes, you're in trouble. Rich Dad believed in becoming a generalist. Learn a little about a lot. Understand sales, marketing, accounting, leadership, communication, and investing. The more skills you have, the more opportunities you create. This is why Rich Dad encouraged Robert to work in different departments of his companies. Not to earn more, but to learn more. Robert took this lesson to heart. After the military, he joined Xerox, not because he loved copiers, but because Xerox had the best sales training program in the country. Robert was terrified of rejection. He hated selling, but he knew that if he couldn't sell, he'd never succeed as an entrepreneur. So he forced himself to learn. It was painful, but after 4 years, he became one of the top salespeople in the company. Then he quit. Why? Because he had learned what he came to learn. He wasn't there for the paycheck. He was there for the education. With his new skills, Robert started his first business, manufacturing nylon wallets. It wasn't glamorous, but it taught him how to build systems, manage people, and handle cash flow. The business eventually failed, but Robert didn't see it as failure. He saw it as tuition. Rich Dad often said, "Job is an acronym for just over broke." Most people work hard, pay bills, and never get ahead. They focus on earning more, but they don't focus on learning more. So even when their income increases, their financial intelligence stays the same. They make more, but they also spend more. The cycle never ends. Rich Dad taught Robert that the most important skills in life aren't technical. They're human. Learn to communicate. Learn to lead. Learn to sell. Learn to overcome fear. These are the skills that make you valuable in any situation. A doctor who understands business can build clinics. A teacher who understands marketing can reach millions. A programmer who understands sales can create empires. Robert also shared a story about a journalist who wanted to become a best-selling author. She was a brilliant writer, but her books didn't sell. Robert suggested she take a sales and marketing course. She was offended. "I'm a professional writer, not a salesperson," she said. But that was exactly the problem. She knew how to write, but she didn't know how to sell. And in the real world, the ability to communicate and market is often more valuable than talent alone. The lesson here is clear. Don't chase money. Chase skills. Build a foundation of knowledge that makes you adaptable, confident, and irreplaceable. The money will follow. But more importantly, you'll build a life of freedom, because you'll never be dependent on one job, one skill, or one paycheck. Rich Dad believed that everyone has the potential to be rich, but most people never achieve it. Why? Because they let 5 obstacles stand in their way. Fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. The first obstacle is fear. Everyone is afraid of losing money, even the rich. But Rich Dad taught Robert that the difference between the rich and the poor isn't the presence of fear. It's how they handle it. The poor let fear stop them. The rich feel the fear and act anyway. Robert shared a Texas saying Rich Dad loved. If you're going to go broke, go big. In other words, don't play it safe. Don't live small. If you're going to fail, fail spectacularly, because at least you tried. Most people spend their lives avoiding risk, and in doing so, they avoid success. The second obstacle is cynicism. The world is full of doubters. People will tell you why your ideas won't work. They'll point out every risk, every flaw, every reason to quit. Rich Dad called these people Chicken Littles, always predicting disaster. The problem is, if you listen to them, you'll never do anything. Robert learned to ignore the noise and trust his own research and instincts. The third obstacle is laziness, but not the laziness you might think. Rich Dad said the busiest people are often the laziest. They stay busy to avoid facing bigger questions. They work hard at jobs they hate to avoid the hard work of changing their lives. Real laziness is staying in your comfort zone and refusing to grow. The fourth obstacle is bad habits. Most people pay everyone else first, the government, the bank, the landlord, and pay themselves last. Rich Dad taught Robert to flip this. Pay yourself first. Invest in your assets before you pay your bills. This forces you to get creative. It forces you to find ways to earn more. It builds discipline and financial strength. The fifth obstacle is arrogance. Arrogance is ego plus ignorance. It's thinking you know everything when you actually know very little. Rich Dad taught Robert to stay humble and keep learning. When you don't know something, admit it. Then find someone who does. Hire experts. Read books. Attend seminars. Never stop educating yourself. Robert emphasized that these obstacles aren't external. They're internal. The economy, the government, your boss, they're not the problem. You are. And that's actually good news, because it means the solution is in your hands. Change your thinking, and you change your life. Rich Dad's advice for overcoming obstacles was simple. First, find a bigger reason. Why do you want to be rich? If your reason is weak, just to buy nice things, you'll give up at the first setback. But if your reason is strong, to provide for your family, to create freedom, to make a difference, you'll push through anything. Second, make daily choices. Every day, you choose how to spend your time and money. Choose to invest in yourself. Choose to learn. Choose to act. These small decisions compound over time. Third, choose your friends carefully. You become who you spend time with. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, challenge you, and support your dreams. Avoid people who drag you down or mock your ambitions. Fourth, master a formula, then learn a new one. Don't just do the same thing forever. Keep evolving. Keep improving. The world changes. You must change with it. Fifth, pay yourself first. Build your asset column before you pay anyone else. This builds discipline and financial intelligence. Finally, reward your mentors. When someone helps you, find ways to give back. Pay them well if they're professionals. Teach others what you've learned. Gratitude and generosity create abundance. The path to wealth isn't easy, but it's also not complicated. The biggest obstacles you'll face are the ones inside your own mind. Overcome them, and nothing can stop you. By now, you understand the principles. But knowing isn't enough. You have to act. So how do you get started? Rich Dad's advice was simple but profound. Start exactly where you are. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait until you have more money, more knowledge, or more time. Start now. Robert outlined 10 steps to awaken your financial genius. Step 1. Find a reason greater than reality. You need a purpose that's bigger than your fear. For Robert, it was freedom. The freedom to travel, to spend time with loved ones, to live on his own terms. What's yours? Step 2. Choose daily. Every day, you choose how to spend your time and money. Will you invest in assets or blow it on liabilities? Will you watch TV or read a book on investing? Small choices compound into big results. Step 3. Choose your friends carefully. Rich Dad taught Robert to learn from people who have what you want. If you want to be rich, spend time with people who are rich. Learn from their mindset, their habits, their strategies. Step 4. Master a formula, then learn a new one. Robert took a weekend course on buying real estate with no money down. That one course changed his life. He made millions using that formula. Then he learned new formulas. Never stop learning. Never stop growing. Step 5. Pay yourself first. This is the hardest step for most people. They pay their bills and save what's left. Rich Dad taught Robert to invest first, then pay bills. This creates pressure, and pressure forces creativity. You'll find ways to make more money because you have to. Step 6. Pay your brokers well. Don't try to save money by doing everything yourself. Hire professionals, accountants, attorneys, brokers, and pay them generously. Their expertise will make you far more than they cost. Step 7. Be an Indian giver. This is an old phrase Rich Dad used to describe getting your money back quickly. When you invest, always have an exit strategy. Know how fast you can recover your initial capital. The faster you get your money back, the less risk you carry. Step 8. Use assets to buy luxuries. Don't buy a fancy car with your paycheck. Instead, invest in assets that generate cash flow. Then use that cash flow to buy the car. This way, your investments pay for your lifestyle, not your labor. Step 9. Choose heroes. Robert admired Warren Buffett, Donald Trump, and other successful investors. He studied their strategies, read their books, and followed their advice. Heroes inspire you and show you what's possible. Step 10. Teach, and you shall receive. The more you teach, the more you learn. Share what you know. Help others. Give back. The universe rewards generosity. Robert emphasized that these steps aren't complicated. They're simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. It takes courage to act. It takes discipline to follow through. It takes patience to see results. He also reminded readers that failure is part of the process. You'll make mistakes. You'll lose money. You'll feel stupid. But every failure teaches you something. Rich Dad used to say, "Winners are not afraid to lose. Losers are." The difference between the rich and the poor isn't that the rich never fail. It's that they fail more and learn faster. Robert shared one final story. A friend of his had saved money for his children's college education. Instead of putting it in a savings account, Robert suggested buying a rental property. His friend bought a small house in foreclosure for $20,000. He rented it out, and the rental income covered the mortgage. Within a few years, the property appreciated to over $90,000. He sold it, reinvested the profits, and now his kids' education is fully funded. Plus, he built wealth that will last for generations. This is the power of financial intelligence. It's not about working harder. It's about thinking smarter. It's about seeing opportunities others miss. It's about taking action when others hesitate. So here's your challenge. Stop waiting. Stop making excuses. Choose one step from this list and take action today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Your financial future doesn't start someday. It starts now. Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just a book about money. It's a book about freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from debt. Freedom from the rat race. It's a book about choosing your own path, even when the world tells you to play it safe. Robert Kiyosaki didn't write this book to make you rich. He wrote it to make you think, to challenge the beliefs you've inherited, to show you that wealth isn't reserved for the lucky or the privileged. It's available to anyone willing to learn, willing to act, and willing to change. The 6 lessons Rich Dad taught are timeless. The rich don't work for money. They make money work for them. Financial literacy is the foundation of wealth. Mind your own business by building assets. Understand taxes and use corporations intelligently. Invent money by seeing opportunities others miss. And work to learn, not just to earn. But knowledge alone won't change your life. Only action will. So take that first step. Read another book. Attend a seminar. Buy your first investment. Start a side business. Do something, anything, that moves you closer to financial freedom. Because here's the truth. The world is changing faster than ever. Jobs that seemed secure are disappearing. Salaries that seemed comfortable aren't keeping up with inflation. The old rules don't work anymore. If you want to thrive in this new world, you must think differently. You must act differently. You must become financially intelligent. Rich Dad used to say, "The path is the goal." Your journey to financial freedom isn't about reaching a destination. It's about becoming the kind of person who can create wealth, no matter what happens in the economy. It's about building confidence, courage, and competence. So, wherever you are right now, whether you're drowning in debt, stuck in a dead-end job, or just starting to explore these ideas, know this: you are not alone. Millions of people have walked this path before you, and millions more are walking it right now. You can do this. You can change. You can build the life you've always dreamed of. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the Book Sanctuary and let the world of words inspire your soul. Because every book you hear, every lesson you learn, every action you take, it all adds up. And someday, you'll look back and realize that the moment everything changed was the moment you decided to stop waiting and start living. Thank you for listening. Now go out there and build your future.